left. Responses, engine 5, engine 3, engine 1, ladder 3, ladder 2, rescue 1. We've got smoke showing. Division 1, you're on location, block 23, reporting smoke showing 727.
JobTlks Podcast members do not represent the cities and towns they work for in their views and opinions. They are views and opinions that belong to us only. We are not here trying to be the experts or tell people how to do their job. Our goal with this show is simply to facilitate knowledge sharing. All right. Welcome back. JobTlks Podcast.
Woo. What's up, y'all?
Woo, woo. All right, before we even get started with the intros or anything, I want to let the viewers know we have a very big announcement.
The biggest.
For our next show, next Saturday. We're going to bring on our first guest, and it's a big guest. Not in size. Maybe kind of in size. But you're going to have to stay tuned to the end of the episode to find out who it is. So stay tuned. End of the episode. We're going to let you guys know. Big announcement.
And that's marketing.
Yeah, and we're out. Episode 9, we're here. If you're tuning in for the first time, please feel free to go back and watch the previous episodes. We think we've put out some decent content, and we'd like to know if we have. Reach out to us on our social medias, JobTlks, JobTlks, Facebook, Instagram. You can find us under JobTlks on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, obviously here on YouTube, Google Podcasts, wherever you listen to your podcasts. Give us a like, give us a follow, and more importantly, give us a share.
Give us a chance, man.
Just give us a chance. Before we start talking about today's subject, I want to give a little shout out for another event coming up. So we talked about the Derek Hines run happening next weekend. Another big event is happening next weekend, the Heroes Cup Hockey Tournament. If you don't know what this is, this was started by a guy, Mike Matros. He's a firefighter. Kind of realized that firemen only get together, or police, public safety in general, get together when bad things happen, funerals, things like that. So he wanted to create an event where we were getting together for something positive. So he started the Heroes Cup Hockey Tournament. Literally have teams that come in from all over the world to play, and it's a 3-day weekend of just a good time, just a lot of hockey, having fun, hanging out. It's all public safety, so fire, police, EMS, and military and veterans. The tournament runs Friday, June 10th to Sunday, June 12th. Again, that's next weekend. Schedule, we're going to throw up a little thing here so you can see that. Just kind of the big hitters. Games on Friday. Big casino night. That's a good time. Saturday, some games. 98.5 is doing a hockey show, tailgating, etc. Sunday are the championships. But most importantly,
we'll do it live. Fuck it. Do it live.
Saturday, June 11th, 12:30 p.m. JobTlks Podcast crew will be on site at the Heroes Cup Hockey Tournament.
Doing it live.
At the New England Sports Center, doing it live with our guest, which we'll tell you about at the end of the show. So
and that's marketing.
So come out, enjoy some hockey. Even if you're not playing or skating, come to the casino night, have a good time, hang out with the brothers and sisters. The really cool thing about this tournament is that every team that's playing chooses their own charity. So it's not a tournament that's raising money for one charity. It's a tournament that everybody who's playing gets to choose what charity they're raising money for. So they raise a ton of money for a lot of different charities. It's a really, really good event. And it's sponsored by the Boston Bruins. So it's the Bfit Heroes Cup Hockey Tournament. So nice. We will see you guys there next week. If we don't see you in person, tune into our live show. All right.
Can I play on a hockey team if I can't skate backwards? I'm working really hard on that.
You only have to skate backwards if you're a defenseman.
There's only one way.
You know the people that go out with the shovel and like scrape the ice up on the intermission?
You
Yes.
still can't do
I
that.
can do that.
You can sign
All
up for
right, I'll
that.
do
Yes.
That's fine.
I'd love to.
I was
see it.
out there. I was on the ice. You probably didn't see me. I was
It counts.
shaving the ice.
So today's topic is generating buy-in. Kind of with every show we do, when you start researching different aspects of the topic you want to talk about, it leads you down different paths. So it was kind of interesting. I started generating or started like trying to read about and watch the videos about like how do you generate buy-in. And there's kind of a big debate on buy-in versus ownership that I think is really interesting. So the topic today is kind of like, what is buy-in and how do you create it? And should we be creating buy-in or should we be creating ownership? Which I think are, as people say, are kind of two very different things, right? So this topic is kind of personal to me. So just a quick background, like why I chose to talk about generating buy-in is, so I was in the military. I kind of had a leadership position pretty young in my career. I wasn't in very long. And during that time, I kind of mimicked some of the things senior leadership did and things that, in hindsight, I don't think actually fostered a good team environment. And it kind of was a learning curve for me because I realized, like, the more you tried to, like, force yourself onto people, like, through the authority you're given, you know, PTing and doing some different shit, you know, you actually generated this like separation of yourself from your team, and especially being like a low level leader, that had a dramatic impact on like team dynamics. And like, not that we weren't able to accomplish the mission, but I think it like hindered actual like relationships that, you know, probably exist still to this day from like some of those like silly things. And when I got out of the Army and joined the fire department, the first department I was on, I kind of got thrust into a position early on because we just started ALS, just started having the paramedic service. And so I got asked to be the ALS coordinator, and I wasn't even off probation yet. So as you can imagine, it was a little bit of a struggle trying to do the right thing, but cope with like the different personalities and people and the people that have been doing it for a lot longer than I've been doing it and things like that. And I thought, and I use the term buy-in because I thought getting people to buy into me was important. Not like in a fake way, but just like letting people know who I am and what I'm about, what I'm trying to do, I think ultimately had a good outcome on being able to actually ultimately accomplish that task of like reviewing calls and all the stuff that came with that. So it was kind of a personal topic for me, and thought it'd be a good one to
That's
talk
an excellent
about today.
topic. It's important. I think you have to be, a lot of buy-in is generated by your leadership, and you have to be relatable. Like you said, you can't, you have to differentiate yourself to a degree,
Right.
But you have to be able to be relatable and have guys you have to be approachable at the end of the day, and like
Right.
establish and fostering a strong team dynamic.
And I think people have to believe that you are doing the things you're doing for the right reasons and not because you want to be in a position of in those cases, like leadership also came with like enforcement and, you know, some different things that are not the fun parts of leadership but have to be done. And I think that people have to know that, like, I don't get a kick out of doing this. I don't want to do this. It's just like we have to talk about it, and like also how you approach those things, like if you're trying to just get people in trouble or whatever. So again, I thought like getting people to buy into me as like a person was big in then being able to foster like an environment of like learning together or whatever the case is.
Yeah.
As much as like firefighting and firefighting culture in the firehouse, you know, we have many things that we can improve upon. One of the things that like guys are pretty emotionally intelligent, and they'll pick up on like right away if you're being genuine or you're full of shit.
Yeah, and I
Like,
think that's
one of the things. You have to be a genuine leader, or even if you're not a leader, you can exert influence beyond like being an actual in a management position. If you're like a senior man or just someone that wants to lead and exert influence, right? Like people
Right.
won't know if you're not
Right.
genuine right away.
Yeah. I agree with that.
Yeah, and I think that's a big point of it is, so when I say like buy-in, it's not like fake. It's not like changing myself so that people trust me, even though I have like ulterior motives. It's like actually being genuine and like letting people see that a little bit, which I think over time kind of meant being a little more vulnerable than I was used to being, and like talking about stuff, admitting your mistakes in front of people, like, you know, stuff like that, holding yourself to the same standard as you hold other people to, things like that. And those make a big difference.
So in our position now, where we're not necessarily leadership, but we always talk about leadership rising from lower ranks. And one thing that I was kind of taught earlier on in like the private world of business, as someone, you know, as like I was a manager and I was like running a company, and it was like, now this wasn't born out of a business school, but it was just the work ethic thing. And it was like, don't ever ask somebody to do something that you wouldn't do yourself.
Right.
So, you know, when newer guys have come in behind me, they kind of pick up some of these basic roles, whether it's taking out the trash or being the first person up to, you know, take care of dishes or whatever,
right.
whatever the thing is. Like to this day, I still try to wake up early enough that no one can beat me to the coffee maker. You know what I mean?
Small acts like that, that's what generates buy-in.
Yeah.
Because you're leading by example, not just by...
For anyone from my group in the firehouse, I obviously don't do that. I sleep in as late as I can in the morning. But I do try to do the other things. But no, like those little things, I think that's important is if you would want to come in the morning to a fresh pot of coffee, then you should make it so that the people that come in after you are coming into a fresh pot of coffee too.
Right.
It's not fair to hold somebody to a different standard than you hold yourself.
Right.
You hold yourself. So again, in doing this, I came across this article, and I'm just going to read a little bit of it. And it was kind of like, it was really, really shitting on the term buy-in. And basically it was saying like buy-in is like you make all the decisions and then you have to just convince people that that's the better thing to do versus ownership. So I'm just going to read a little bit of this. Like I said, it was pretty staunchly against buy-in, but it says it's very important to make a clear distinction between buy-in and ownership and not present them as if they were the same or interchangeable, because buy-in is what everybody talks about. More often than not, it does not work at all or doesn't work well because it's the opposite of ownership. Ownership is when you own or share the ownership of an idea, decision, or an action plan. It means that you've participated in its development, that you chose your own accord to endorse it. It means that you understand it and believe in it, and that you're willing and ready to implement it. It says, again, buy-in is the opposite. It says buy-in is a total illusion. Anytime you or someone around you thinks or talks about buy-in, beware. Anytime you or someone around you thinks or talks about best practices, beware. This is because usually best practices are imported from an outside organization and they can't be implemented properly without buy-in. And they say buy-in is most often an attempt to compensate for a problem that should have not been created in the first place. So again, I think it's always good if you're trying to learn about anything to find a point that's completely counter to yours and really think about it and is what they're saying true. And so what I thought when I read this, and I read a few different articles, I specifically chose this one just kind of how against it the person that wrote it was. And I actually agreed with a lot of the stuff they were saying about, one of the examples he gave is like, you're going to make dinner. And you can either ask everybody what they would like to eat for dinner and make a meal that, kind of everybody has input into. And even if it's not their favorite thing, everybody's on board with it and everybody's happy. Or you can cook the thing you want to cook and then try to convince them that that's a good meal, even though they might not like it. And that was what they were kind of saying the difference between ownership and buy-in was. And I think that the ownership portion of that goes a lot towards policy making and things like that. But the buy-in portion of it, I think, goes towards a more personal level is kind of what I was, kind of how I felt after kind of reading a few different things.
I think they're differing terms, but they should be used synonymously. I think people have to take ownership of the fact that it's our responsibility to generate buy-in and to build and develop effective teams where people want to be there.
Right.
You look at things like if you're not happy with the culture in your agency, the culture in your firehouse, or fire service culture, there's things that you want to improve on. You have to acknowledge that you have to take ownership for changing it. You can't wait for someone else to try and make those changes or I would do this, but right now that's bullshit, right? You have to at least make the attempt to establish some forward momentum. So I very much view this like, hey, if there's something you'd like to positively impact, then you have to take ownership of that and try and make a positive contribution to the overall culture. As far as buy-in's concerned, like you can, I can see what he's saying, but I think generating buy-in is important. I don't think it's like a buyer beware thing. I think small acts of service, like John was saying, like how motivating is it to see like a senior officer like in there like changing the toilet paper or something like that makes you like, you know what, like I'm gonna step my game up. That buys, like, to me, like buy-in is like it's encouraging me to be invested in the organization. Like I want to be here. Something similar. I spoke to Derek recently, and his captain of Engine 3 is now doing family barbecue days on Sundays, where they all just grill out back, and all the other groups come in with their families, and still the families of the members that are on duty can come in, and if they catch a run, they catch a run. But stuff like, cool. I have never even heard of something like that, but like you're bringing all the groups together in like a nice setting. Right. And you can rib the guys that are going on calls or whatever, but even their families can be there. And that to me, like that's generating buy-in. Yeah,
that's pretty cool. That's I didn't know they were doing that. It's a good idea.
I kind of look at it in a sense of, it reminds me of, this is the way it's always been done. So when you go to change something, you have to create buy-in, and you create buy-in by, like breaking down the science of, an exterior attack and doing, whatchamacallit, I'm having a brain fart. When you have the exterior attack, you go in and tear at the same time, the duel.
I don't even want to tell you.
Some might say it's transitional.
That word always escapes me.
I was enjoying watching you struggle.
Guys, we're on camera. Tell me the word. Yeah, so transitional attack, right? How many people are against that? So many people. And then I actually had a chance to catch up with Chief Galligan, former Chief Galligan of the Brockton Department. We were talking about, he has the 2.5 story class that he teaches every so often, and we just sat there and just had a conversation, and he started talking about the transitional attack and how, everybody was against it, but then they found that it started, it was kind of doing
backed in some science.
Yeah, it was backed in some science, and
there's
it took
some hostile camps there, but
there is. But you know what? It took a long time to make that change. But if you don't, like, I don't know, at least start to buy into it, you have to like when people see effective strategies and tactics, right? It's gonna create buy-in. People are gonna, oh, that's it. That's the answer. I'm doing that. Right. You know what I mean? And then they're like all in for it because it's gonna work. Yeah. So I mean, I don't know.
I think buy-in. So. I think a few like talking points from that story in and of itself, and how I was kind of thinking about this. So there are things that you can involve the membership in when it comes to decision making. Like you can ask them about their preferences for apparatus design. You can ask them about these different things. And there are other things that if you're in a leadership or a management position, and we like to talk about leadership because it's different from management, but if you're in that leadership position, you sometimes just have to make decisions as the leader, and you have to get people to understand why you made those decisions. And then that's where like the buy-in. So I do think like on one hand they're synonymous, but sometimes they're opposite. So like ownership would be that like, hey, we're putting a new apparatus together. Like, what are some of the things you would want to see? And then something like, hey, listen, we are changing this SOG because of this, and this. And then you have to like work with them to be like, hey, look, this is why. And I think like kind of what that guy was saying is you do have to kind of convince them like why it's better or why it's the right thing, but it's not nefarious. It's sometimes just that they may not know or they might not have exposure to it. And then I think the third point is like that's where the personal buy-in comes in. So like you talk to somebody like former Chief Galligan, guy's got enormous amount of credibility when he talks, you know what I mean? So if somebody like that comes to you and starts saying like, no, hey, listen, check it out, this is why, here, and here, let me show you. Well, now they buy into him as a person, and then they're more receptive to his ideas and buying into the idea as a whole. So I think there's like, I think it's a much more leveled thing than when I really first like had this idea of an episode where was thinking.
Yeah, I think you're right, because it's hard to differentiate those terms.
Yeah,
and not cross over in some
Right.
areas. Yeah, I guess they could mean some different things depending on the context that you're talking.
right.
Right?
To me, buy-in just means like, how do we convince people to be invested?
Yeah.
Like in
Right.
the mission.
Right.
Right. And again, not nefarious. So it's not
No.
like we're convincing people because we have some like ulterior motive. It's because like, hey, I really care about this job. And let me show you why and like how you can care about it and like, you know, add to it as well.
And it's also, it's the cascading effect, right?
Right.
Where it's like, he's doing it, and then it's kind of like, well, I'm not going to be the only guy out. And then before you know it, everybody's involved. Everything gets done very quickly. In the morning time when we go to work, right, it's like truck check out, and then it's like every single thing that needs to get done. If everybody stays out there, if all 8 guys at our station stay out there, including the captain, and everybody just wham bams everything, right? Like yesterday we had like 5 guys washing trucks, and we all just
Got it.
ran through all the trucks
Right.
together, and it happened so quickly as opposed to each crew going out and just doing their own thing, you know?
Yeah.
And
Many
that-
hands make light work.
That's it. And it
Yeah.
all just happens very quick, and then it's done fast, mission accomplished.
Right.
It's not getting dragged out throughout the day. Now you get one guy who's like, all right, well, I got to like do this before I get to any of that. And then you have another guy who maybe he's like, well, I'm hungry, so I got to go up and eat or whatever,
Right.
anything to like break that chain. Now you've got the cascading event in the opposite direction where everything kind of unravels and things don't get done and mission incomplete.
Right.
I think people like you said, whether it's in the firehouse or in the military, like people can very easily sense whether you're being genuine. And I think, like, to your credit, like you said, there's times where as a leader, or like whether you're in that management position, you're in a position of influence, whatever, especially in the fire service, there's going to be times where you just have to level with people and be like, listen, we understand that this situation is less than ideal, but we still have to do it. So like, let's come up with a plan together collectively. Like, let's just bang it out. It is what it is. And I think if you level with people and are honest and be like, we recognize that this situation is less than ideal. You don't have to pass responsibility off. Just be like, hey, like, I understand these circumstances are difficult. This is what we have to do as a team. So like, let's formalize a plan and just get it done. And I think people respect that. Like, okay, let's get it done.
I think that people, like in my experience, I do think people respect that. Like, I think people respect when you say like, and again, you don't pass the blame off. Like, hey, listen, we're being told we're going to do this, so we just have to do it.
Well, the chief said we have to do this.
Yeah.
So like, you're
But
shifting blame.
But if you can say like, listen, I understand why people are concerned about this or don't want to do this or whatever the case is, but they have their reasons, and it's just something that we're going to have to get through together, and I'm here with you, and we're going to do it. Then, you know, and, you know, in the fire service, I think you see that a lot with like, when like new officers get the buy-in from their senior man, and then the rest of the crew buys in from there. Cause like the senior man's the person that runs shit, right? In
pivotal
reality.
role.
Yeah. Like they not, you know, obviously the officers make those decisions and the officers have their role, but like if you talk to a lot of people, the people they look up to in their companies oftentimes are the senior man, and it's just because of their wealth of experience or, you know, whatever. And you have good ones and you have bad ones, and you can really see the difference in crews when you have senior people that don't care or whatever, and ones that do, or you have an officer trying to do, even if it's like good progressive things or whatever, but you don't have that support of the senior man, and then like nothing gets accomplished. They do it, right? Like, because you have to. At the end of the day, you have to do it.
Yeah, it's the difference between authority and influence.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
it's
right.
it's the difference between them being like, yeah, fuck it, let's go train. This sounds like a great idea, and being like, oh, you know,
Yeah, right.
Will wants to go train again. You know, I'm not an officer, by the way, but like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
But
I
you
don't
do
know.
always want to train.
I
For the
do
most part, within reason.
within reason. Yeah.
Well, I think that obviously a lot of like, you know, buy-in, investing in culture, leadership, you know, authority versus influence. We talk, you know, and we, you know, we'll have an upcoming episode regarding leadership. We'll like really dive into that kind of stuff. But you see that in fire service culture and in the military. Like if you are, you know, the senior man is equivalent to like a non-commissioned officer in the Army.
Yeah, it's like your platoon sergeant versus your.
So I've had
platoon
a
leader,
couple. So I essentially operate as a platoon sergeant within a different community in the Army, but I've had 2 new lieutenants throughout my career, which is essentially like my officer counterpart, same thing as like a senior man and officer. And I've had great young lieutenants that have, been like, hey, like you obviously have a lot of operational experience. Your team has a lot of operational experience. Like he still exerts authority, but he gains influence by acknowledging like the cohesiveness of the team and the experience, and then gets buy-in from everyone else. Same thing as like, you guys on an engine company, like if you have a brand new officer, you had a great officer before, you have a strong crew that has a really good working dynamic. If someone comes in and like kind of just disregards that and is like, hey, this is the way it's going to be, versus like, hey, John, I realized like you had a great officer. I'm not looking to replace him in any way. Like I want to learn from you guys, and hopefully we can step our game up and, like build something. And then like you're immediately you're like your guard is down, you're disarmed. And you're like, you know what? Like I'm willing to work with this guy. Like I'm willing to try and develop a relationship. And that's like the fundamental like foundation of generating buy-in, is like you're taking a situation that can be difficult and being like, hey, like I recognize that I'm new here. I want to work with you guys. I want to learn from you guys. And hopefully we can develop a crew that was maybe as strong as the one you had with your previous officer.
Right.
Then I'm immediately like, fuck yeah.
Let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
And I think like you could almost call that ownership too, right? So the difference is that like as that position, you are in whatever it is, whether it's an officer or a senior man or even a junior person that's trying to get something done, whatever the case is like you're working for them, they're not working for you. And if you have that mindset, they do have a little bit of ownership in you, right? So they do have a little bit of like ability to influence you and like how you do things, because if you're open to their ideas, you might change something that you do.
Yeah. I'm smiling because I'm thinking of the time you and I were summoned.
Dude, I was literally we're not going to go into too much detail about it, but we had lost our lieutenant he was transferred, and we had a very, very tight crew, and we got called up to summons to meet our incoming lieutenant, and we walked in and we're like,
hit him with some jokes.
Yeah, this is Dragon. I'm Nighthawk. We like fires, naps, and working out. And it was just met with like deadpan silence. And we were like, all right, okay.
Walked out the door and I was immediately like, well, I'm out.
I'm out.
See you out there.
See you on the sheets. But yeah, I mean, like, and like everyone has like a different approach, some more effective than others. But how effective would it be if like instead of being like, hey, like, Engine 1, like come up to like my place to meet me, like what if that that like officer like came up to you at your firehouse on like his off day, and he's like, hey, like I just got assigned, I know you guys are working today, but I just want to stop by, say hey, like I'm looking forward to coming to work with you next tour.
Total
like,
different.
Fuck yeah, I'm in. Yeah.
Total,
see you there.
I'll
be there. I'll be there 15 minutes early now.
Yeah, right.
Well,
maybe
Barry won't.
maybe but
Barry won't. The rest of us will.
no. I am on time,
So many
except for
barrels.
filming
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
episodes of the show.
Oh yeah, well, shout out again to Gio Rodriguez.
They show up on time
for
today?
my early relief today. He was only 3 minutes late.
Ooh.
We're getting there.
Thanks, Gio.
John still
thank
beat
you.
both of us here.
Still, yeah. Gio, you're a better man than me.
Yeah. I think that's interesting. And so part of it is relevant, obviously, to the fire service, to our lives in general, to whatever. But I also thought it was relevant to this podcast. So like how do we create buy-in or ownership from the viewers we have or the potential viewers we have? Because I know like one thing that could be said about us in this podcast is like, who are these guys with like pretty minimal experience as far as like experience goes? You know what I mean?
Yeah, we're young guys.
Young guys trying to like, come in and tell us how leadership and culture and all these things work and how tactics work. And so, it's applicable to us even here right now, is trying to create that like, hey, no, I'm just a dude that likes the job, that wants to talk about it. And I want to talk about it with people that don't know as much as me. And I want to talk about it with people that know more than I do so that I can learn. And, so I think it's just kind of like one of those really applicable things to a lot of facets in our life.
100%. And that's, I think, one of the big premises of the show. Like when we really got it off the ground is like, we have a disclaimer at the beginning of the show. It's like, hey, like, we're certainly not experts in the craft whatsoever. We're students of the craft and we're lifelong learners. But just trying to bring people together that are passionate about firefighting. I think a lot of the principles from the show are kind of irrespective of, like business principles. You talk about like a lot of leadership principles and like how do you make an effective culture. But yeah, generating buy-in is just like, again, just being genuine, being humble, and being like, hey, like, yes, we don't have a lot of experience, but these are the things we are passionate and that we care about, and we want to learn more. And we realize as young members, there's plenty of things in the fire service. We've all been on for, John and I have been on for like 5 years. You've been on for a bit longer. That we would like to change or positively influence, and realizing, hey, at the end of the day, like, we can contribute to that. We're not the standard bearers for anything, but at least we can try and look back and be like, hey, like, we tried, or we tried to shift the margin a little bit.
Well, it just starts with a conversation.
Yeah,
you spark the conversation, and then you take people listening in, take it back to their firehouse and say, hey, what do you guys think about this? Is a hot dog a sandwich? Is a hot dog a sandwich or not? And you just have that debate, but then it turns into something else, right? Then it turns into,
then Will gets like weirdly competitive or argumentative about something stupid.
Then it turns into some kind of tactic or something they didn't hear about, or a view that they didn't hear, and you just create conversation. And just the conversation alone, just sitting around talking about anything really, it creates buy-in into like the culture of the job. And that was one of the things that in the beginning of this job, right, I think everybody remembers going to academy, and all you can picture the whole time is like kicking in doors and like rescuing people and like battling the red devil, the red dragon,
which we
whatever you
obviously
want to call it,
do
right?
every day,
all the time.
That's why I get fist fights with John all the time.
Yeah. But you get sold this,
back, you red demon,
and you're like, oh man, this culture's great,
right.
And it is. But, it created buy-in immediately, right? And so it's like, and that's, obviously we go to our jobs and, we don't all get to live out these like superhero dreams, but we still need to talk about it and be, active and proactive in how we're going to do things. And these conversations are just how all that starts.
It's rejuvenating.
And I think to that point, like, because especially depending on where you work or whatever the case is, your demographics, you don't see those like things that you want to see all the time. It's even more important to talk about it, because you should at least have some idea of like a plan or what you would do when you do encounter it. And I think this is kind of separate from the buy-in discussion, but I've had conversations, and maybe even mentioned it before, but talking about some of the younger people coming up, and the fires are down in a lot of places, and then you don't know what you don't know, and complacency, and then that's it. I guess it is relatable, because if you're like the senior person or the officer in those places, you got to generate that buy-in to try and get the people to understand, like, hey, no, we have, like, this is why we have to train. Like,
this will happen.
We don't. Yeah, it will happen. Like, you're here for 32 years, or now it's 35, I think, right?
30, yeah.
Like, you're here for 30 plus years. Like, it's gonna happen.
Going all the way back to our first episode. High acuity, low occurrence.
High acuity, low occurrence. Yeah, exactly.
So all these things that don't happen all the time, you still have to know what the hell you're doing. And if 10 years goes by and you don't do something, and you never even thought about it, and you never reviewed it, you know what I mean? These are why we just have to keep on.
Right. And there's always going to be a scenario that it's such a dynamic environment that you didn't fully think about or plan for. But if you plan for the different parts of, like, maybe you're going to have a rescue that's a little bit trickier or something that you weren't planned for. But if you've talked about how you affect rescues, if you talk about how you're going to encounter a door that's way different than you planned, but if you've at least talked about having backup plans and stuff for whatever, that stuff is important.
And that's a good thing about the team aspect, right? Is like, I don't know everything about that, but that guy does.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, and everybody knows a little bit, and nobody lets anybody fail, right? That's like the greatest thing about working on a fire department that does EMS, is that when we go to a call, a lot of times we're going to a call with 5 paramedics, and if it's a real bad call, maybe even 6 with our captain going, and all these captains are like seasoned paramedics, so we have a lot of experience.
It's a wealth of knowledge.
It's like 100 years of EMS experience walking into a door to take care of one person. So, like, they're going to get the best treatment,
Yeah, I agree.
And it's one of those things, like, we're here for, 30 some odd years. Like, why wouldn't you want to be invested? Like, why wouldn't you
Yeah.
want to love your job?
Yeah, right.
Why wouldn't you want to share that with guys in your firehouse and make it, because it's going to be like that.
Yeah.
And it's
Goes
over,
quick.
and then you're going to be looking back.
Right.
And you're going to be like, hey, like,
Yeah.
maybe
And
I
why
should-
wouldn't you want to try and create that buy-in or ownership or whatever you want to call it, so that as you gain seniority and newer people come on, building that reputation of like, hey, maybe Will doesn't have all the answers, but Will's a decent dude, and maybe he doesn't, maybe forgets to put the electrodes back on the monitor every once in a while or fill the truck up or something like that. But it's, as a person, like, and a firefighter, medic, whatever, is a decent person, and you gain a little bit of like credibility. And
Yeah.
My absolute pet peeve is pulling out the 12 loop cables and there's no electrodes on it. I will find you.
Some people don't like them preloaded.
Why?
we got taught.
Why?
We
I
got
don't know.
taught
I like to preload
I
them.
did too. We got taught not to because
Why?
they can dry out. I don't know.
No,
I
what?
don't even know if it's real.
How would
What?
they? I don't know.
We're not going to
We
create
use them
buy-in
so-
if we start
we
talking
use
about.
them
Hold
so
on.
quick.
Let me just.
Yeah, we got to
Oh,
stop
yeah,
talking
all
about EMS before everybody turns off the podcast.
Speaking of generating buy-in,
Yeah, exactly.
hey, it's part of the job. Fortunately, unfortunately, however you look at it, it is part of the job. But
I have to say that when I've found that, I love being at work the most is when I'm working the hardest. And that doesn't mean,
yeah,
getting my dick kicked in by, having 30 calls in a day. But, when you go to the station, you pick a project, something that needs to be done, you got everything on your list of like things to do done, and you just keep on working at it. And then it's like that day, you cook dinner, maybe you cooked breakfast, everything. On those days where everything comes together and everything is getting done, that's when I like it the most, because
Yeah.
it feels like a well-oiled machine and things are going good. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But on the days where you don't feel like doing anything, and you're just like a lump of crap, like with your feet up, by friggin' noon, it's like,
right.
those are the days where I'm like, it's like, don't get me wrong, I like to sit around and hang out as much as the next guy, but I mean, I'm too busy to be sitting around, and I like it more when I'm busy.
Yeah, those are your most memorable shifts.
Yeah.
Some
I
of
think
my
so.
most memorable shifts, we were just getting, like you said, you're just getting your dick.
Yeah, like when you're like 8 o'clock at night,
Yeah.
scrubbing the walls in a 90-degree.
Yeah,
That is-
Dude, my busiest shift to date was with Dave Jones on Group 2 when I was on Engine 3. It was the day that you guys, we had that large scale hazmat, and you guys, all
yeah.
of you got transported. We did, I think, like 16 or 17 runs after 4 p.m. It was obnoxious, but like looking back,
Yeah.
which is also crazy because you spent a long time at that one
yeah, it was.
extended incident.
I came home the next. I was dead to the world, but
Yeah.
I still talked to Dave about that. I was like, man, that was great. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that builds camaraderie.
Yeah.
Especially when you have a day like, because listen, if 16 runs, you're not going to have 16 cool runs. You're going to have a bunch of
One
garbage
one
in there.
cool
But
run.
when you have that day and you do get the 16 runs, and one of them is like a high acuity, high level
Yeah.
extended incident, and
Sure.
you're just like, dude, I fucking earned my paycheck today.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
that feels good.
Exactly. It's funny you say that, Barry, because my first full day, like I still remember that day. Still talk to that guy about it. The guy, so now he's the deputy chief, and he went from firefighter really quickly to lieutenant. He had been taking all these tests for years, right? But he went lieutenant, captain, and then deputy chief, VMS. And so when I got on, he was training me. And so our first day, I get in at 7, right? They show me how to make coffee, whatever. I'm off and run. I go down to check my truck out. He comes in. It's like 7:30, and we get a call. So obviously we were early relief for the next crew. He's a sharp guy. He's in early. When I tell you we didn't come back till noontime, and we had 30 minutes before, we didn't come back till dinner time, and then we had 30 minutes until we didn't get back till like midnight. And then the next day, we started up again. Like maybe we were in bed by midnight, and we started up again by like 4 a.m. And we're like rolling into the station, man. And I look like I got chewed up and spit out. And he's looking at me, and my eyes are like this, right? And he's just like, I swear it's not always like this, right? And I'm like, what did I sign up for? And we talk about we talk about it I don't know, every 3 weeks. No, not we talk about it. I mean, often though. It's like,
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah.
It was like,
And if you talk to any of like people always remember their fires, but that's part of the reason.
Yeah.
Part of the reason is because you're working hard and it's memorable. But if you talk to a lot of people, those are the the shifts. Oh, we had this shift, we did this and this, and
Right.
you just I don't know, you just feel good about it.
yeah, yeah,
Which I don't know
It's
how that.
camaraderie and
Yeah.
building memories, and
yeah.
Yeah.
then new guys will come on and be like, I did this man.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, okay, pal.
Yeah. Whatever.
Yeah, whatever.
Well, isn't that the point? Like, if you're getting your ass kicked, with your, at least you're all in it together.
Oh yeah, 100%. 100%.
And,
Collective suffering.
Yeah, collective
Yeah.
suffering, right?
Yeah.
You can take that and make a memory out of it. Whereas if it's by yourself or with one other guy and you guys are the only guys getting your ass kicked and everybody else is, feet up, not doing a damn thing or whatever, it's like that just creates the opposite of buy-in. It just creates like, I hate this.
Right.
I am a firm believer that you will not be as cohesive a team as possible until you've collectively suffered.
Right.
And then that level of like brotherhood that you have after that is like,
There's a reason like military
yeah.
guys that deploy together or even just go to basic, whatever, or have such tight bonds. And you know what it is when you suffer, your real personality and like your true self comes out. And like
Sure.
when you, and listen, when you're 16 runs and you're 3 a.m, you're not going to be your best self,
No.
but you're going to be your real self.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so you just like, I feel like you just kind of bear it all to those people, and bringing it back to the buy-in part is if you have like buy-in with each other, then you're just suffering with your buddies,
Right.
And you know what I mean. And you can get through anything
Yeah.
if you have that camaraderie going on. So
Yeah.
100%. 100%.
Barry, why is he still smiling over
No,
there?
just,
thinking
remember the
about
good old days.
yeah.
I know,
Bopping around.
I know. Yeah, but you'll be back with part of the
Very
band
excited.
soon.
Very excited.
Sounds like
Getting the band back together.
word on the street.
That is the word on the street. That is
Mm.
the word on the street.
Well, I mean, it's not a super long topic. It just I thought it was interesting.
Good
and,
topic.
And I would be interested to know for the people watching or listening. Do you think you generate buy-in, or do you think that you generate ownership? And are they the same? Are they different? Be interested to hear people's thoughts on that. It's just like I said, just researching it, kind of came across that, and I don't fully disagree with those points. I just think that they're all kind of applicable in different situations and scenarios. And again, I think like if you are the person that's just constantly making these kind of policies that aren't popular or unnecessary, I guess, because unpopular is common, but aren't necessary and blah, 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 blah. And then you're just trying to convince people to go along with it. Like that would be a poor example of trying to create buy-in for the wrong reasons. But if you're just trying to like level with people and be a genuine person and create buy-in like that, then I think buy-in is still a good thing. And I also think that ownership is a good thing together.
100%.
And together, I think they're great. So
100%.
you guys ready?
Let me have
Ready.
it.
We have a big surprise.
Oh,
coming
the
up.
surprise.
I thought we had.
Yeah. So
thought we
yeah.
had
So
something else.
I kind of want to screw with them because I told them the end, and then they're gonna go to the end, and they're not gonna hear it, so they're gonna have to go back and listen to the episode to find it. So
And that's marketing.
big surprise. We have a guest at our next episode live.
Whoa!
Jason Patton
Look at that stud.
from Fire Department Chronicles and Fire Department Coffee. You may know him from his role as Murphy S. Law in his sketch comedy. You may know him in his very short films like What? Or even from green screening himself into ultra realistic TV shows about firefighting. If you don't know what I'm talking about, then go follow his channel because
Yeah,
it's
he's hilarious.
fucking
Yeah,
hilarious.
Funny guy.
So next week, Marlborough, Massachusetts, New England Sports Center, JobTlks Podcast will be live with the one and only Jason Patton
Super excited.
filming an episode. So
So either tune in or come to Marlborough.
yes, and so that'll be at 12:30. I think that's kind of probably an important thing if you want to tune in since it's live. 12:30 or roughly 12:30. We're going to be going live. Some cool things. We're going to be doing some giveaways. So we want you to come into our live chat. We're going to throw probably some questions out, and both for our audience, live audience, and for those in the live chat. We'll get some answers from some people, and we will be giving out some swag.
What kind of questions are we going to ask?
I don't know.
Favorite non-pornographic magazine.
Good housekeeping.
Good housekeeping. Yes,
John
exactly
Stamos.
Like do you? Yeah.
I hope John Stamos is
Did
there.
we just become best friends? Yep.
If you guys couldn't tell, we're all a big fan of Step Brothers in that movie.
Yeah.
Make many references.
Yes. So that's the big surprise, Jason Patton. He's going to be in Marlborough. So we kind of jumped on this a little bit. It was fortuitous. So he is actually the MC for the Heroes Cup tournament. So he'll be around all weekend, walking around, telling jokes, doing stuff on the stage, interacting with people. And we're just going to kind of steal him for an hour and a half. And we're going to talk to him about some stuff and pick his brain. And it should be good. I mean, I haven't seen this guy do something on camera that isn't good yet.
It's crazy. Like, we talked about it before, just like the amount of support from random people that we've gotten, and like other people in the industry that like believe in the mission and trying to positively. It's incredible. I'm very excited.
Yeah, it was a little like reaching out, just being like, hey, listen, we're nobodies who have barely started doing a thing. Would you be interested in doing it with us? And he was awesome. He was great about it. Like, yeah, absolutely. So that's the big surprise, Jason Patton. 1 week from today, 12:30. Join us in our live chat, or if you're around the New England Sports Center, Marlborough, if you're at the Heroes Cup, then join us in person, and we're gonna have a good conversation with Jason, and then we're gonna give away some stuff.
Come on down.
Come on down.
Why are you so sweaty? Just watching Job Talks.
All right, guys.
We all know for a fact JobTlks does not come on until Saturday at noon.
Did you touch my drum set? Another Step Brothers reference for people that don't.
I know you touched my drumstick because it has a chip in it.
And if you don't get the references and you don't know Step Brothers, just turn off our podcast because we don't want to.
No, don't do that. Don't do that. Like and subscribe first.
Like and subscribe, and then never watch. No, I'm just kidding. Go watch Step Brothers. Anyway, are you guys ready for the question of the day?
Let's do it.
Today is going to be interesting. I am not sparking a debate, believe it or not. I hope.
Wow. Must be a full moon.
A debate will come.
And
it's actually a new moon, Barry.
And it's not about food.
It's the vernal equinox.
It's not about food because I feel like we did a lot of questions about food. I want to know what your most prized possession is. And here's the thing.
Jesus.
Here's the thing. I'm gonna go ahead and establish some ground rules because, and listen, it might actually be your most prized possession. That's true. But like, I feel like people are obligated to say, their wedding ring or something like that, and that is a prized possession for people or whatever. But I want to know kind of like the thing, like, and maybe that is, if it's truly your most prized possession, it is. But I don't want that like obligatory answer. I want to know like what you own, and it could be sentimental, or it could be, from a family heirloom. It could be from, your military service, or, your business, or whatever it is. I just want to know what your most prized possession is. Very.
Well, you couldn't lead us off. Put so much time and effort into
I feel like
this.
you know one of them.
You? Oh, I probably do. Yeah.
Talked about it a few times.
Do you want me? Are you good?
I can do it.
Yeah, go.
I'll do it.
Ooh.
So I would say like my wife or my unborn child, but you can't really possess those.
Not in America.
Not in America. No. If I'm being 100% honest, my most prized possession is 100% hands down Kaya, because I feel like I do own Kaya. This is my dog.
Oh wow, that is not where I thought you were.
No,
gonna go with
Kaya's
that.
like 100% my absolute like best friend. Go anywhere with her, do anything. Like, fucking, she's awesome. However, if I couldn't choose a living organism,
Yeah, because I think
can't
if that's the
choose a
case, we would all say our dog.
yeah, okay, all right. Let me think about this.
But good mention.
Yeah,
Honorable
honorable mention. Kaya,
mention,
my
Kaya.
wife.
I'm getting
unborn child.
my dog passed away in September, and I'm getting I have my tattoo scheduled. I'm getting his face on my
You guys
arm.
Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay. 3 things.
Wow.
One, as
Maybe-
you know,
maybe this is debatable.
I have an M1 Garand
I hate you.
that saw active combat in World War II.
It's like
That's up there for me.
one of my ultimate things I want. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool.
I will never sell that, ever, unless it was to keep my dog. Then I would sell it.
So if I hold your dog hostage, I could.
But
I
I'd
would
shoot
just
you with the
use
M1
the. I
Garand.
was gonna say
Yeah.
I just use that to shoot him and take my dog.
The second thing, my buddy. Do you guys remember Dan Kroll? He was at my bachelor party. He was
I do.
Oh, I would then if.
Yeah, he was the officer. He was overseas with us in Somalia. He's
Okay.
he's
Oh,
yeah, we
yeah,
went to his
he
house.
lives in New
Yeah, that's
York.
where-
Yeah.
The
One
guy
of my-
you got up at 6 a.m. on your bachelor party to go
Yeah.
on a hike with?
Yeah.
That was a good.
Yeah, that was a good hike.
That was a great hike.
I'm
Yeah.
glad you guys enjoyed
Yeah,
it.
John was there. It was a good hike.
Glad you guys enjoyed it.
He's one of the absolute best human beings I've ever met. One of the best leaders I've ever met. He got me sand from the first casualty collection point from Utah Beach in Normandy.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
That is up there. And then a family friend, after he passed away, his family gave me his ribbon rack with his
wow.
Purple
That's
Heart,
cool.
and he was in the first wave, Utah Beach.
Wow.
Normandy. So those are up there for me.
Yeah, that
Those
is-
are
Everything else is
those
kinda
are good.
replaceable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I understand
World
why.
War II theme, as you can tell.
I also understand why you have 3 because it's kind of hard to like put one of those above another. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
I was gonna say my combat action badge, but like you'd probably be like, it's not even a real badge, Barry.
I don't think
No,
that
no.
in certain scenarios.
In certain scenarios. No. Yeah, those are my 3 absolute favorites.
That's awesome.
I would assume that you're one of the ones you would say your most prized possession is probably the counterpart to what I mentioned, but I digress. I'll let you speak for yourself.
I'll go after John. Unless you're not ready.
No, I'm ready. It's just funny where like if I have to look back and I have to like look at the things that I've actually managed to hold on to my entire life, there's not like many things. I'm sitting here like trying to think about everything that I own. And I own a lot of stuff, but it's not old stuff. But last year, so I stepped away from guns for a long time just because I hadn't had any interest. I had found a bunch of new hobbies. But then some friends of mine started really getting into it. And, some of my friends went out and bought 22s just to plink and have fun with. And I was like, oh, yeah, I got a 22, And I've owned this 22 since I was 7. And my grandfather bought it for me. And, it's just a Marlin 22 tube feed, holds 14 rounds. And that to this day is probably my favorite gun to shoot, and not just because of the simplicity of the whole thing. And it's literally just like shooting a BB gun or a pellet gun. There's like, there's nothing to it. And it's kind of like, you throw a can on a hill and just keep shooting the can up the hill and have fun with it.
I have a Marlin bolt action.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just like, I don't know. Me and my buddy Dave took him up to Vermont last year, and I hadn't realized how long I had actually owned it. And I was, at the time last year, I was 32 last year, right? And it's like, wow, like I've had this gun for 25 years. This thing's been in my possession for 25 years. And so I like think about other things like that I have. And there's not really much. Like all the things that have been given to me, by my parents, and it's like more like life lessons and memories and things like that of like child, how we grew up and everything. But then I started thinking, well, what else? And then I'm like, well, it turns out that my grandfather was very much into like American heritage, and he actually has an M1 Garand, and he was in the Marine Corps. He was in Korea, but he I forget what rank he got as far as like marksman, or he made some kind of he was really good with guns, and that's how guns kind of came about in my family. But my uncle has that gun. Actually, my grandfather requested that gun be cremated with him, but
Really?
I don't think it was like possible. My uncle took it anyways, and he wanted it. And it's a really great gun, but but when I was also like, when I was like 8, he gave me this knife kit, and it was all like heritage, like, you know, it's like not really porcelain or like bone, but whatever. It's like this really nice white, and then it's all like animals engraved on it. And so,
pretty cool.
yeah,
That is
so
cool.
it's like a fillet knife and a skinning knife and a buck knife and like, you know, all these things. And so it's funny. It took me, you know, 20 some odd years to like get into hunting, right? But then finally, I'm like, I need a good knife, and I'm like, I know it's a collector's set. I'm like, but the hell else am I gonna do with it? So I used it a couple times.
It's kind of a testament to him.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
He actually used it.
Yeah,
Doesn't
yeah,
sit
yeah.
there, you know.
And so I have these few things, and then like all in the same, and then I have his like retired flag and everything, and it was like, so I'm like all these things that I have from him are like really great, and I can't really think of anything else that I've owned for that long,
Right.
besides those two things. But I don't know. So I guess those are like,
That's cool.
yeah, pretty prized. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah,
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I like the history.
yeah,
Stuff with history, which is generally what
Right.
you know people's prized
Right.
possessions are.
yeah.
But mine, one is like kind of a collection of things. So not really any one part of it is more special to me than another. I guess it's not true. There are parts of it. So I don't have like a lot of hand-me-down stuff from my grandfather died when my dad was young, and he didn't have like, they're just like, I don't have that like lineage stuff, which I wish I did. I think that'd be really cool. I have a couple. So one of the things I guess would be like my dad made this little knife box when I was a baby, and it's just like just this little like wood thing he handmade, and it has like a little knife inside of it, and I have that, and you know, that's probably like one of my most prized things, just because, you know, it's from when I was little and he made it for me, and now I have it and whatever. The other things are kind of special to me because of like my life, which I don't know if maybe that sounds kind of selfish. So kind of like a collection of stuff from when I was in the military. So I have like some of it got stolen / lost, which is disappointing, but I had like Iraqi dinar from before Saddam was out of power, and then I had some that they had dyed red because that happened like when I was over there.
I have some of that in my safe.
Do you? Yeah. So I had some, you know, from being there, and I had jars of sand from Iraq and Afghanistan, and those kind of disappeared over time, unfortunately. But just kind of that collection. I have, you know, an old Fedayeen Army helmet, a couple helmets from foreign soldiers, and my I have some like death cards that my unit had, and I have like an old DCU top, and I'd say like probably this is maybe on the top end of it because one of my good friends who was killed, you know, signed it before I got out, and obviously before he died. So, you know, it just says, you know, it's like, hey, good luck, you know, whatever you're doing, whatever. And then he was killed next deployment. Actually, the guy my son's named after. So that kind of collection of stuff is really important to me. And then I'm actually surprised that neither of you said it, but my fire helmet is also my
What's up there?
top. Not these. I mean, I like these two, but like my in-service helmet that I've had. And so the reason is because I have a handful of helmets. So I have a helmet for my previous job, but they didn't allow leather helmets. And to be honest with you, when I first got into this job, I didn't really know a lot of the history of all that stuff. Like, I didn't grow up around a fire family. So like learning that, the like leather helmet tradition, stuff like that, I thought was really cool. And the day I passed my PAT to get on Cambridge, and knew I was getting the job, I ordered my leather helmet. And it is like kind of the culmination of my like life into like what I want ended up, you know, because you have different ideas of what you want to do when you're little, and then as you grow, things change, and the idea of like what I wanted to do with my life is kind of symbolized in that helmet, and then all of the things I've been able to do in that job now, except for Mike Matros washed it with his service after that hazmat. But aside from that,
Well, hey, that's all part of the
story. It's never the object; it's always the symbolism.
it's the
everything
story
behind it,
yeah.
But I'm excited, you know, to like be able to hand that off someday.
Yeah, that's
Because when my grandfather passed away, I got a bunch of his guns. And then I got this really nice. This gun was like, it's a lifetime gun. This is a generational gun. And it was a 410-22, and it needed a little work. And I'm not like super anal about that stuff, but my uncle is. So he like scrubbed some stuff down, reblued some areas, whatever. He made the thing mint. He replaced the firing pin for the 22 or whatever it was, not the pin, but whatever the thing that snaps it is. And so whatever. But then because he has a kid, and his kid's like 9 now, but I gave it to him a few years ago, and I'm like, give this to TJ, because this is like, he should be hunting rabbits with this gun when he's 10 years old.
Right.
You know what I mean? So and it's his grandfather, so he should have that. But I was so happy to hand that off, even though I love the gun.
I think that's part of it too. Is it's like a legacy. And like I said, there's not really a lot of legacy stuff in my family, so I'm excited to like. I don't know. I guess I'm just excited to be able to pass that stuff on.
Imagine how happy your kid's going to be when he gets that.
Yeah, I mean, or maybe he'll hate my guts. I don't know. He's a year old.
I suspect he'll like you. I'm surprised you didn't say like your maroon beret.
But that's part of like. So I didn't mention it, but that's kind of part of the collection. Is my beret from airborne school, my original issued wings and CIB. Some stuff like that, like kind of all in that collection. So it's hard to narrow it down to like one thing, but kind of that culmination again of like all of those things I wanted to do, and I did them, and then now I'm where I want to ultimately be, and
on Job Talks.
Yes,
nice.
So see, told you, non-debatable. Nick, do you have a prized possession?
Mine are not like nearly as cool. They're not like military stuff. I have a couple though. So my grandfather's still alive, and he has some stuff that like we don't know who's gonna get what, but it's probably gonna go to my dad or that generation before anything like that gets to me. He has like a musket that was used in the Civil War.
Dang. What?
Yeah.
That's
wild.
Wow.
It's sick.
Sorry, just a caveat. One of my like
But I don't have it yet, so it's not mine.
One of my dream hobbies, if I had the money, would be to collect actual firearms from different battles in history, like Civil War, like Revolution, but it's just not something that's affordable.
Yeah. So he has some cool stuff, but his wife, my grandmother, when she was alive, she gave me her father's cigarette cases from the 1930s.
That's cool.
Like are in a safe. Like they're so cool.
That's cool.
Because they're like you can't put real like today's cigarettes in them because they were smaller or hand rolled back then always. Yeah. So it was like they're like cigarette cases that don't fit in your pocket. You have to put them in a suit coat pocket. Like they're like really old
neat.
school.
Yeah,
they
like
look like Mad Men style.
Yeah.
One of them's polished wood with like inlay, like metal inlay. Like they're really, really nice.
That's cool.
That's so two of those. It's one, and then the other one. It's a little, I guess, it's a little morbid, but it is what it is. When my grandmother ended up passing away in 2015, my uncle, who is an artist, he works with metal. He has a friend who works with glass. So my grandmother was cremated, and then this guy made these glass orbs for each member of our family and put some of my grandmother's ashes inside.
It's not morbid at all.
So it's like
pretty cool.
It's a clear glass orb, and her ashes are like spun up the middle of it.
That's very cool.
That's very cool.
It's like also in the safe, and I could not live without that.
Yeah,
it's
nice.
just
So,
very, very important to me.
And I don't think like the like they're not as cool. They're, military. Like,
well, I just don't have like I didn't.
But that's what I'm saying. Like maybe if it was in your family or something, then you had something that would be cool. But like if I wasn't in the military or my family wasn't, like that wouldn't be important to me. So I think it's what's important to you is what's cool.
Sure.
The story, is what's cool, not the item and whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's just
I think
some
that's
cool
neat.
stuff. That's like it's not like carrying an urn around. Not that I knock anybody who was cremated and is sitting on someone's shelf somewhere. That's not a big deal. But it's like we each got
So everybody got to keep like a
yeah.
And you know what it is it's not. I guess it is physical technically, but it's just the representation of like, like I'm sure like when you think about it, probably brings back memories of her. And
Oh yeah,
things
like
that,
and like
know what I mean?
I have like a ton of pictures and everything, but this is just way more of like a physical,
personal.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Super
cool.
cool. Super cool.
That is
thing.
cool.
So yeah, those are mine.
Sweet.
Very cool.
Very cool. Well, I think that does it for this week. Thanks for tuning in to episode 9. Remember to not tomorrow, next week, 12:30 live show. Join us in the live chat. We're going to be giving away some stuff. If you're in Marlborough at the Heroes Hockey Cup tournament, if you want to go there to spectate the games, there's some. Listen, the division I play in is not fun to watch for anybody, but there are the A division. Those guys are like, that's like real hockey. Like, it's fun to watch hockey. So if you want to go spectate, and then again, 12:30 Saturday the 11th, we will be live with Jason Patton. Big thank you as usual to all of our viewers and our listeners and our supporters. As we keep going on, I continue to hear people that are like, oh, I checked out your podcast and like this, and a majority positive feedback. A couple people that said, "Who the fuck do you think you are?"
There'll always be those people.
They're always going to be there.
They'll always be there.
But
okay.
the support has been overwhelming, and sincere thank you. As always, thank you to Big Dick Nick, Wilco Media, for doing this. We could not do a live show or any of these cool infographics or any of the stuff without him. If we were trying to do this in our basement, it would look significantly different. So big thank you to him. And
Huge thank you.
Again, we want this to be user-driven. We want your buy-in and your ownership. So if you have an idea, a topic you want to talk about, if you're an expert in something, or you want to hear about something, please reach out. After next week, having our first guest, we're going to try to start having more guests more frequently. We kind of wanted to get into the show a little bit, kind of get some buy-in, kind of get some audience, and then start throwing some guests in so that we have, we want people to really be able to learn from the people that we're going to bring on. So, going to get interesting. Follow us on JobTlks, JobTlks. Our social media is YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever you listen to your shit. Wherever you listen to your good stuff. Give us a follow, like, subscribe, and please, please, please share.
Internationally known on the microphone, John.
Whoop, whoop. All right, guys. JobTlks out.
Peace.